may introduce further information in the public meeting.
What is on this board up there, Joanne?
Mrs. Benner placed those there.
I'm sorry?
Mrs. Benner, I saw her place those there.
Well, I'd like them taken down because she doesn't have permission to put stuff up there.
They were the same pictures as last meeting?
Just take them down, please.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Those
Thank you.
pictures are in your packet.
Okay, you'll tell us that one. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is our regular meeting for April 27th, 2003. We will begin with our normal introductions, starting with David.
Dave Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Brian Mazer. Scott Azana, Town Engineer.
Kimberly Peace.
Tim Redmond.
Gail Breck, alternate and recording secretary.
Philip Devanza.
Collis Adams, Select Board Representative.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
We have two regular members that are absent this evening, so both of our alternates will be voting this evening. We will dispense with the most of the correspondence and items. We will only take care of the minutes of April 13th. I am going to suggest that we move those meeting minutes to the next meeting for discussion, since we have a long correction from my member who is not here this evening. So I'd like to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes to the next meeting.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to table the minutes until the next meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Oh, I guess
opposed?
abstain, I wasn't there.
And abstention. So you got one abstention?
Yep.
Okay. We will move the rest of the correspondence items 2 through 5 to the end of the meeting. I will note that number 5 is stated as a copy of photos from Gady Benner that were submitted at the March 23rd meeting regarding map 18, lot 16A and 17. They were included in our mailing, so they are in your packets for all members present. So the first application for the evening is old business. It's map 18, lot 17 and 16A. Joanne, could you please give us an up-to-date report?
Yes, so at your last meeting, excuse me, at your last meeting, you held a hearing for conditional use permits 2 and 3, which were remanded by the court back to this board. The hearing was closed, and you decided to continue your deliberations until tonight. I just wanted to put one correction out there. In several of the correspondence that we've received, the plaintiffs have stated that the driveway exiting the site onto Joffrey Street, a member that had been on this board had stated that that was a two-way, but it's actually a one-way, and I've included a photo for you, just so you familiarize yourself with what it looks like. But if that could be just be corrected in the minutes for clarification to what was previously stated.
Do all board members understand what Joanne has just told us? Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Good.
So you're basically here tonight to review the criteria for each conditional use permit separately, because they're both stand on their own. And then at the end of the deliberations, you would be taking a final vote.
So Joanne, would you lead the charge, and we'll take them individually and read the conditional use permit that's being requested,
Tim, can I ask a question?
please?
Joanne, we discussed having the revised traffic report reviewed by a third party. Was that completed? I mean, do we have comments?
No, Scott and I talked it over, and if you still want to do that, we will need to reopen the hearing, because now we're bringing in new information, and it wouldn't be fair to the public and the plaintiff if they didn't have a chance to comment on that and review it.
Okay, so so the discussion tonight then is on the information that was presented at the last meeting.
Correct.
Okay,
At the last meeting that we had in March.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Joanne, could you please continue?
So the first conditional use permit is number 2, and that is a driveway shall be located at least 125 feet from street intersections. The proposed driveway to be located on Hague Street is closer than 125 feet to the intersection of Mast Road. And so originally, when you voted on the actual proposal, you know, the original plan, you had voted in favor of all of the conditional use permits. But then it was appealed, and then the judge sent 2 of them back for remand. So that was one of them. And this is on Hague. We're basically looking at Hague Street for both of the conditional use permits. So this is the first one, that it's too close or closer than 125 feet to the intersection of Mast Road. So the second one is driveways shall be located at least 100 feet from other existing driveways on the same lot or adjacent lot. The proposed driveway for lot 16A, Hague Street, is adjacent to the existing drive for lot 15, which is the next door neighbor. And that was initially denied when you first held your hearing, and then that was in July of 2021. And then the applicant returned with additional information on September 9th, 2021, and the board changed their vote and voted to approve that conditional use permit as well. So if you look on page 8 of your packet, there's also, I'm sorry, not page 8, page 9. It lists the criteria for each conditional use permit. How many are there? There's 6 altogether. And so that's what you'll need to review for each one to make sure that you're in agreement with taking into consideration the new information that you received at the last meeting, particularly from Steve Pernaugh, the traffic engineer.
All right, Joanne, any of you have questions for Joanne?
Me.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was remanded for, the focus was they didn't believe that we had correctly reviewed or addressed the pedestrian traffic. Isn't that the focus that we're looking at?
It was both pedestrian and vehicular traffic.
Oh, there were, one other thing too, that was in there, they also talked about in the order, commercial driveway.
This is in the court?
Yeah, it's in the court, it's on the document dated at the bottom of the front page, 1/4/2023. And page 3, it basically states that the board simply did not have evidence before it about how this increase in traffic would impact safety in the neighborhood accordingly. It did not have a basis to conclude that pedestrians would not be adversely affected, would not be adversely effective, I think it's a the word is wrong, by the proposed development of the laundromat. The record is clear that the commercial driveway's impact on a residential neighborhood was not one of the reasons the board discussed. So it was that what was considered a residential driveway wasn't discussed by the board for either purpose. In short, the interveners do not point to anything in the record that the court misapprehended that shows that the board actually considered the impact of the new commercial driveway on pedestrian vehicular safety on Hague Street. So those are the things that we need to address.
So if you look on page 12, I've listed several items that came out of the last hearing that we held, particularly, basically focusing in on the driveways. So the new report from Steve Pernaugh Pernaw highlighted a few things. One was the entrance of the driveway located at 2 Hague Street will be a one-way entrance driveway into the site of the laundromat, and then it continues into the car wash. It will be located further away from Mast Road. That was originally proposed. The new driveway will be safer as it is only a one-way in and the cars won't be backing out.
Joanne, do you think it'd be best to review these additional traffic memos when we touch on the specific criteria number, rather than read them all and then bring them back in?
Well, I don't plan to read them all. This is the information that was submitted at the last hearing.
Okay.
Because they said there wasn't enough information to consider approval because of, he didn't cover traffic, pedestrian and vehicular traffic for safety reasons. So these are the items that were discussed. He also said that Hague Street obviously is a dead-end street. The road provides access to 21 residences. There are 10 residential driveways on the west side and 11 on the east side. The majority are offset from one another. This section of Hague Street will primarily be impacted in the first 120 feet from Mast Road, as that's where the driveway heads in. This area contains 1 residential driveway on the west side and 2 on the east side. 20 to 30 additional trips were projected during weekday conditions. Due to the fact that this is a one-way driveway, there will be not really any traffic heading further than that up the road to cause trouble. There will be no backing out, which I've already mentioned. The Hague Street driveway is 16 feet wide, as going back to what Phil had said, it's not the same width as a typical commercial driveway. It has been shifted over approximately 5 feet from the existing driveway. 2 of these 3 lots are zoned commercial and the other is zoned RSBO2. The remaining 1,000 feet of Hague Street will not experience additional traffic. Truck traffic entering the driveway is expected to be minimal, limited to light vehicles or vans. One of the abutters argued that the driveway is too close to the abutting property. The peer review recommended the plan include recommendations from Steve Pernaw. This was the Hoyle Tanner review from the original study. To install do not enter, one way and no left turn signs at the entrance and exits, which they have shown on the plan. The court found that neither the traffic study nor the review of it discussed effects that changing a residential driveway to a commercial driveway would have on pedestrian and vehicular safety. Hague Street is, 2 Hague Street, which is the corner property, is zoned commercial, and the abutting lot is Lot 6, which is zoned RSBO2. Does everyone know what RSBO2 is?
Just go ahead and tell everybody what it is, John.
Yeah.
Residential Small Business Office District.
Well, it's for the benefit of the people in the audience.
And on TV.
I forgot about that. The driveway separation is approximately 30 feet rather than the required 100. It would be very difficult to meet the 100 separation, as the lots in this area have frontage ranging from 60 feet to 260 feet, the majority being on the smaller end. And I put on your table is 2 Hague Street is highlighted, and then I just highlighted the frontages of the lots in the area, and as you can see, the driveway for Hague Street, 2 Hague Street, you could never get 100 feet to the next adjacent driveway if there's just no room to do that. So that's a problem with the lots in Canardville. They're smaller sized. I think that's all I have for now.
So would your suggestion be to take these criteria and read them and discuss them individually to review each criteria as we go through them?
To review each conditional use permit, yes.
Bill?
No, I agree with that. I just wanted to point out, and I don't know how other members were, but I know when I had my packet from the last meeting, which was quite thick, that we had several of things that looked very, very similar when they came in, and I thought they were duplicates, because sometimes we get a duplicate of it, because they all look the same. Memorandum, who it was from, received date to February 17th, there were 3 of them. And they all were on the same stationery, Pernod and Company. I assumed that they were duplicates. So I picked one up, I went through one of them and on it. And I realized, since the last meeting, reviewing everything, that there were 3 separate items. And one of them was very, very important, because from my perspective, everything is in the one that addresses both of these, and it's the information that we didn't have that was put together, and it addresses pretty much all of them. And it starts out, and for me, ironically, I started, going through this, and I caught up with something that was on the next to the last page of it. So I started from the back going forward, going through it, and that's when I realized that all these points that were made up, and everything is fairly well pointed out and addressed in this document. But if you read through it, you don't necessarily put all those pieces together in that way when you read it. At least I didn't. If you start off with on page 7, this is the one date we received it February 17th, and it's from to Attorney Sullivan, and the date is January 26, 2023. And if you go towards the back on page 7, on the top of the page, number 4, commercial driveway compatibilities with residential uses on Hague Street. And I have to admit that when I was reading the court order and it talked about the commercial driveway, the residential driveway, I mean, you start looking at that, I could not picture in my mind a commercial driveway, the residential driveway and everything. But in here, to me, I read this and it clarified it for me, where commercial driveways are typically much wider than a residential driveway and have much larger corner radii to accommodate large delivery vehicles. And I don't want to go on here, but the point is that I found, and I highlighted a lot, is all the things that we need to in these 2 that we never addressed, that the court said we didn't have that information. That information is in this one document that addresses that. It talks about the commercial driveway. It will not be, a laundromat facility will not be wider than other driveways on Hague Street. That's an important thing that we need to know, because the driveway will not be wider. It's not a 2-way traffic flow. The corner radii that is proposed is compatible with passenger vehicles. The predominant vehicle type will utilize the driveway. The proposed laundromat driveway will be compatible, as it will resemble other residential driveways on Hague Street in both appearance and design. And that's one of the things that you go in there. And you go in there, and then as I went through, like I said, I went on to page 4, and on page 4, I came up to a thing that talked about the 3 bullet points that are on the other page. I'm on 6. Effects of changing a residential driveway to a commercial driveway would have on pedestrian and vehicular traffic. This is the stuff that the court wanted us to address. It's basically addressed in here. When you go back, now I'm going, again, like I said, I'm going backwards, and I'm going back to the other page and talked about the 3 bullets. Well, there it is on page 3, right in number 4. Daily traffic volume utilizing the second driveway on Hague Street. Subject site number 2, Hague Street, is expected to change from approximately 10 vehicles per day. And they go on with all of that, but they have this. But all this is, basically, what Joanne has in the outline, a lot of that is in there, but basically what this is saying, that the effect of the traffic is only going down to that driveway. When you follow it down, the trips that you have, as you go down, further down Hague Street, those are not being impacted, because that traffic is from Mast Road down. And when you go into the traffic study, the other parts of it, there's another one of the other things, they talk about the times of day. They compare Saturday, compare with Sunday, and they talk about the trips. The majority of the trips are between 5 and 6 in the I think it was 5 and 6 in the evening, and 6, well, they had the times for the morning and the evening. Those were the high times. But to identify that, and what this is, it outlines is that the traffic impact is going up to that driveway. That driveway is designed for basically vehicles. It's designed, it matches the other driveways in the neighborhood. It talks about the large, a van that you get in there. And that the traffic, the volume of traffic, the increase of the traffic trips generated by the laundromat do not increase below that driveway. So the majority of that stuff I found to be addressed in here. And I'm not saying everything is, but I thought, I read this and it was like, I don't know how I missed it. But when I looked through the packet with all the other stuff, I mean, there was a lot of information in there. And for my part, I apologize for missing it.
Okay. I remind everyone at the table to speak slowly so the signers have a chance to keep up with us. We don't want to speak too quickly. David, you want to be recognized?
Yes, thank you. I too rely upon the applicant's presentation on the Hague Street traffic conditions, which was presented at a previous session. Much of that was already re-emphasized by several board members here. And I also rely upon the written correspondence of traffic analysis provided to the planning board. Specifically, I'm referring to a memo written by Pernoff and Company dated on the 26th of January this year. I find that analysis, I believe, like what I'm hearing just earlier, a few moments ago, they indicate that the subject's driveway on 2 Hague Street, which the plans show being 115 feet from the intersection of Hague and Mass, I conclude will not substantially alter Hague Street traffic or operations, nor introduce substantial adverse impact on vehicle and pedestrian safety. So, based on what I've just concluded, I'm prepared to make a motion unless you'd like further discussion and now, or you would like to have me make a motion or then have discussion.
Make a motion on what subject?
Conditional use permit number 2, addressing a driveway being less than 125 feet from a intersection.
I think we should go through all the criteria as we've been suggested by the planning director, each one individually.
I'm prepared to address the 6 criteria.
Yeah, but board members have to have a chance to discuss them too. It's not all one person. So I would like you to withhold your motion at this time until we have a chance to follow the director's advice and review these conditional use criteria individually. So please hold that. So Joanne, we're going to be on conditional use permit
Number 2.
number 2. Is that the one we're on?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to read it, and I'm going to let you lead the discussion, and other board members can chime in after Joanne has had her chance to speak. So 15.4.141, the use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use. Joanne?
Okay,
Is that what we're doing?
yes.
Okay.
So what would you like me to do? Start off?
Either say it is or it isn't.
Well, the board has to decide that, but I'm saying it is. And I just wanted to point out section 7.5 of the ordinance and 7.5.5 talks about alternatives for the separation, and it specifically says, in order to provide for more flexible alternatives to satisfy, no, I'm sorry, that's not it. Where compliance cannot be achieved with the standards for driveway separation as contained in this section, the planning board may permit a reduction in the dimensions or dimensions that cannot be achieved in order to allow for the establishment of the driveway access to a lot, provided the board finds the reduction in dimension is the most minimal reduction which will still allow the access to be established. to the lot while minimizing the greatest extent possible. So as I pointed out on that little lot dimensional frontage requirements for those existing frontages for those existing homes, there definitely it wouldn't be viable at all, because there's definitely not enough room, not just on that lot, but several of those lots. So
you're saying that it is specifically authorized as a conditional use based on that section 755?
correct.
Board members have any opinions on the subject? Okay, so the board concurs with your, do we need to have a voice vote on this, Joanne, to be complete, or is no one speaking? David?
We normally, we can discuss it now, but normally the motion specifies the 6 criteria, and then there's a vote.
Okay. So the next one, Joanne, is 154142. If completed as proposed by the applicant, the development in its proposed location will comply with all the requirements of the section with the specific conditions or standards established in this ordinance for the particular use. Joanne?
Yes, so this property is zoned commercial, and the use is allowed, and they have received a few waivers, and they may have received another conditional use permit. Well, there were 2 other conditional use permits that they received, so they have met the standards of the ordinance in order to be cited on that property.
Any other opinions from board members, or do we concur with the planning director? Okay, no voices means we concur. Next one, Joanne, is 154143. The use will be compatible with the neighborhood and with adjoining or abutting uses in the area in which it is to be located.
So the area is zoned commercial RSBO D2, and I'm not positive, but I think there might be 1 or 2 lots nearby that are residential. But basically, the majority of the area is commercial, as well as across the street is commercial with businesses. So there would be no reason not to allow the use of a laundromat in that area.
So Joanne, just to make sure everyone is clear on the zoning, the lot 18-16A is a commercial lot, is that correct? The corner lot where the laundromat is proposed?
Yes, that's correct.
And then the next lot in 1815, what is that zone?
That is zoned RSBO 2,
So that could be a business if someone wanted to have a business in there, that's what that
a
states.
small business, yes.
Okay. Does anyone have a difference of opinion with the planning director? Okay. The next one is 154144. The use will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety.
And I think that's where the court had the issue that at the previous decision that it wasn't proven to the board members, and the board members didn't have any other information on whether or not that would be the case. As Barbara pointed out at the last meeting during the hearing, we don't have any way of conducting reviews on pedestrian safety, but we certainly have ways to conduct reviews on traffic in general. And I think the report that Phil was just referring to that the board received at the last hearing stated that there were certain reasons why this would not provide, or this would provide some safety features, such as turning the driveway into a one-way, not backing out into the street where kids may be riding their bikes. There were a couple of other instances, and I would refer back to that report from Steve Pernar, that they did provide ample information to satisfy the board at this point.
Okay, does any board member have anything else to say about that? We call it from Phil. Phil wants to say something else? Go ahead.
The only thing I want to say is there are several things that address that criteria, and they're spread out. They're spread out on different pages of the report. They're not put all together. The report hasn't put them together. So some of those things, like I said, it was commercial driveway, when you're talking about the neighborhood, the commercial driveway, and the bullet sections that I talked to on page 3, it says the term commercial driveway, which was specifically, that term was specifically used by the judge, a commercial driveway. And when I read that, and I couldn't describe a commercial driveway versus on it, but it's in it typically infers that a driveway will accommodate a combination of passenger vehicles and trucks traveling in both directions, inbound and outbound vehicles. In the case of a laundromat, however, the truck traffic expected to be minimal and limited to an occasional light vehicle such as a van. From this, it is reasonable to conclude that Hague Street will continue to accommodate the same vehicle mix under pre- and post-development conditions. The vehicle fleet will continue to consist of preponderance of passenger vehicles. So that's, and again, as it's stated in here, that traffic impact is only going up to that driveway. It's not going beyond that driveway. So the properties, the driveways and the properties below the laundromat driveway won't be impacted.
Brian, were you provided with those documents Phil's been talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I want to make sure you were keeping up to speed. Because you weren't here when those were distributed.
No, but I do have a question, but you go first, Kim.
No, I just wanted to say, what was the date of that?
Oh, this one.
Let's just make sure that we're specific
Yeah.
in the
It's-
minutes. of
Yeah,
what-
January 26, 2023.
Okay, so that was the memo that was provided.
Right.
And then that discussion was at the last meeting, which was April 13th? No.
I think it was March 23rd.
March 23rd was the
I
last
think.
presentation. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that those were in the minutes, because I agree that when we reviewed those and then they came in, gave a presentation, pedestrian and vehicular traffic were specifically addressed in the presentation and in the memo and documented that we agree with this, that this criteria is being met. I don't have any concerns.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, so sorry,
Right.
Brian.
Well, I couldn't find that in regards to the pedestrian movement analysis.
Right, because there was no actual analysis for the pedestrian, but he pointed out certain things, like the fact that the driveway won't be as
Okay.
wide as a commercial, and it'll be a one-way in, no
Okay.
cars backing out, things like that that really do have to do with pedestrian
Okay.
safety.
There was no like sensors or video surveilling about the flow of traffic.
No, I've been doing this for 30 years,
Yeah.
and I've never seen, I mean, I think
I
you're
think it's
right. I think
overkill
you're
as
on the
well.
right
Yeah.
track, but the engineering and all has to come up
Got it. Okay.
to that
I want to
point.
make sure not missing any kind of data or information.
Everyone's always concerned about the vehicular traffic, but no one, it's just starting to become a thing, like, let's care about the bikers out there. And
Okay. All right, does anyone else have anything to add for the adverse impact discussion on vehicular and pedestrian safety? Okay. The next one, Joanne, is 154145. The use will not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. In evaluating visual impact, the planning board may consider architectural 125 and design elements. Could you please tell us what architectural 125 is?
I have no idea.
I don't either. That's why I make sure I understand what we're reading.
Are they in the,
Is that a code, a compliance or something?
I don't know. I mean, architectural I can see, but I don't know about that
I
125.
don't know why the number 125, I would think it would read architectural and design
Right,
elements.
it could be a
Mr. Chair,
typo.
Joanne, is the proposed building for a laundromat, is it the same structure that's already there?
Yes, so the same structure that was a
So
house.
that goes to the visual aspect, it's
Which-
essentially not changing.
So the
Which is
architecture
a-
hasn't changed.
Well,
brick
they're
cave.
making some small changes as we saw on the site plan where they have some exhaust vent equipment going to be installed.
The 125 is not actually part of the zoning ordinance, I think.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's a typo.
yeah,
Typo.
it's not in the zone, so
Right, that's what I
125
was gonna
doesn't
say.
belong in
I
there.
was going
Yeah,
to say,
typo.
something's not right.
Thank you for showing
Thanks,
that.
Gail.
So that 125 is to be deleted from page 9, 154145. The number's 125.
So when
So-
they talked to the fire department was concerned about the vents that someone
look-
mentioned.
That's a fire comment, that's not a visual or a visual quality issue. I mean,
No,
if it's a fire safety issue, that's a different subject.
right, and the only reason I was saying that is because they were concerned, and they said that they could put them in a way that they wouldn't be bothering the shrubbery around, because they were afraid that the heat from the vents would be killing the shrubbery, and they
The fire
said,
department said that?
yeah. And
Yeah, remember that?
they said they could work with that and
A green fire department.
do it correctly.
Forward thinking.
So it's the existing house, which is a brick cape, or partially brick cape, and it's facing, they would be closing off the front door to Hague, so the front of the building would actually be facing the car wash. So all you would see is the outside of the facade.
So there's going to be minor changes to the building, but we've seen them, and it was the board's determination that they are not going to have an adverse effect on the neighborhood. Board members concur with that? I don't know if you ever saw the renderings, Brian. They showed us renderings of the building way back when this was
I think
discussed.
I might have those too.
The original.
Back of that.
Well,
Well, I'm gonna sketch a showing last.
that's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't think it's on there.
I got the point.
Okay, so
Just saying.
the next and last criteria is 154146. Excuse me, the use will be adequately served by necessary public utilities and by community facilities and services of a sufficient capacity to ensure proper operation of the proposed use. Could you explain what necessary public utilities and community facilities and services are, Joanne?
So they are served by Manchester Water and Town Sewer, and they're hooking in, just as the site next to them has all of the same facilities that would be needed. As far as community facilities,
And there's adequate capacity in those.
yes. As far as community facilities, I mean, the town plows the road. They do not get town trash pickup. That's private, that they would have to hire another firm for that. I don't know of any other town facilities other than if there were a fire, the fire and ambulance would respond.
We did receive comments from fire and police
Yes, we
regarding
did.
community facilities.
Yes.
Okay, good. And services.
So that's
That's it?
really it.
Any other board members have anything to add to the last criteria?
If I could just add one thing, Manchester's Waterworks did work with them during the planning process and went over the needs that they will have as a laundromat as far as the water consumption.
Okay. Any other board members, anything? Otherwise, I'm going to turn the floor over to David. Anybody else have anything? David?
Okay, I offer a motion then for the approval of conditional use permit number 2, finding that in accordance with the zoning regulations 15.4.1, that for the 6 criteria, would you wish me to read the 6 criteria again?
Not necessary.
Okay, thank you. That we just discussed for that section of zoning section, and to grant relief from zoning section 7.4.3.1, thereby allowing the Hague Street entrance driveway, as shown on the plans for the proposed use of tax map 18 lot 16A, to be less than 125 feet from the road intersection of Hague and Mass.
Okay, David's made a motion to
I'll second.
approve the conditional use permit number 2 with explanations. Kimberly, you second it?
Yes.
Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of David's motion say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Abstention? Brian. Motion passes. So Joanne, what else are we voting on tonight? Anything else?
So we have the other conditional use permit, which was number 3,
Okay.
and that is for the 100 feet from another existing driveway on an adjacent or same lot. And that would be, the lot would be adjacent to lot,
So which which
15.
lot is it exactly in question for this? Is it lot 18-15?
15, yes.
So it's the lot next door, going
Correct.
up Hague Street on the right.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions for Joanne about this second request for a conditional use permit? So Joanne, are we going to review each of the criteria a second time for this particular permit and make sure we are clear and on the record about all of them? Okay. So we'll start over again with 154141. The use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use.
Yes, so it definitely is authorized as a conditional use, and I would like to just point out again that under section 7.5.5, it allows for a reduction in the dimensions from one driveway to another.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Anybody disagree with Joanne's interpretation?
No.
Okay. The next conditional use permit criteria is 154142. If completed as proposed by the applicant, the development in its proposed location will comply with all requirements of the section and with specific conditions or standards established in this ordinance for the particular use. Joanne?
So, yes, again, as I said before for the other one, it's permitted in the commercial zone, which it's located in. It complies with the requirements of that zone. And it also meets the conditions and the requirements of our zoning and development regulations based on other waivers and/or conditional use permits that were received.
Anybody want to add to that from the board? All right, and everyone concurs with Joanne's interpretation. Any dissent in the ranks? Okay, the next one is 154143. The use will be compatible with the neighborhood and with adjoining or abutting uses in the area in which it is to be located. Joanne?
It is located in the commercial zone. The abutting lot, which we've been talking about, lot 15, is zoned RSBOD 2, which allows for small businesses, and across the street we also have Franklin Savings Bank, and there's a Starbucks going in.
So, just to expand on that slightly, if the lot next door, an RSBO2 lot, was to become a small business in compliance with the zoning regulations, is it possible that that lot could also have a van or a truck, a small truck coming to from that house at some time for the purpose of their business?
Sure.
So that would be a compatible use with the next door, should the next door ever become a
Right,
small business.
and the 3 lots across from those 2 lots, the first 3 lots on Hague, on the opposite side of the
Yes.
street, are all, they're being used as residential, but they are also zoned commercial, all 3 of them,
Commercial?
commercial.
18.7, 18.6, and 18.5?
Are commercial?
Yes, 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, that's important to note.
Yep.
So, I did not know that. I thought, as a rule, the lots only on the Mass Road corridor were the ones that were zoned commercial.
No,
So that's on your zoning map? You have that on the zoning map?
I have the site plan in front of me, and we've already checked this.
You've checked them?
Mhm.
Okay, then I'll take
5,
your...
6, and 7?
Okay.
5,
Yes.
6, and 7.
It's on the site plan.
Okay, good.
And also, nowadays, everyone's getting things delivered to their home through
Amazon.
Amazon and other
FedEx,
places.
UPS.
Right, so seeing a van traveling down a residential street is not unusual.
Thank you for that. Any board members want to add in on number 3? Okay, Joanne, number 154144, the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety. I think we've heard that, but I'll let you briefly.
Again, I would refer to the reports that were submitted by Steve Perna, traffic engineer. We have 3 altogether, but the last one that we received dated January 26, 2023, summed up the other 2 and added additional information as to why that driveway doesn't provide any concerns as far as safety goes.
Board members have anything to add to the director's comments?
No, just one thing.
Bill?
That the driveway will not be wider than other driveways on Hague Street.
That's apparent by the print right.
Well, right, I know, it's apparently.
But put it into the record.
Yeah, the driveway will not exceed 16 feet in width.
Okay. Board members? Next one is 154145. The use will not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. In evaluating visual impact, the planning board may consider architectural and design elements. Joanne, I think we've covered this on the prior conditional use permit. Same?
Correct, and the driveway doesn't, for talking specific of the driveway,
Yeah.
there really is no architectural
Okay.
design.
Board members? And the last one is 154146. The use will be adequately serviced by necessary public utilities and by community facilities and services of a sufficient capacity to ensure the proper operation of the proposed use.
Same
Joanne?
as the last one.
And that would be the same as the last one, town services for utilities and city services will be provided.
Okay, board members? Anybody want to add anything to that? I don't think there is much since it's cut and dried. Okay, so at this point, we move on to board's decision on to make a motion to grant this permit,
Can I make a clarification?
please?
So it was noted that the property is on the, what is this, north, south, east side of Hague Street. 5, 6, and 7 are commercial. Actually, it is 5, 6, 7, and 8 that
Okay.
are commercial.
Thank you.
So it actually, commercial zone actually extends even further down Hague Street.
Thank you for that clarification. Any more discussion on conditional use permit 3 that we were just discussing?
Mr. Chair?
Please, David?
I'd like to offer a motion then. A motion to approve conditional permit number 3, finding that in accordance with zoning operation, section 15.4.1, that we have reviewed the 6 criteria in our previous discussion, and to grant relief from zoning section 743 and 1, thereby, and we're relying also on guidance in zoning section 7.55 for driveway separation in this issue. Thereby allowing Hague Street entrance driveway as shown on the plans for the proposed use of map 18 lot 16A to be less than 100 feet from the existing driveway serving the abutting property known as 6 Hague Street.
Dave's made a motion to...
Second.
Carlos Adams. David Pierce made a motion to approve conditional use permit number 3 with a explanation. Please, Phil, that's a discussion of
Do
the
you
motion.
want to add also the reference, same reference from the January 26 memorandum that we
Yes,
added to the
thank you.
MOU?
I'm relying on my conclusion with this conditional use permit. I'm relying on the applications, the applicant's presentation at a previous session, much of which we just discussed. That was also, there's corresponding written documentation on that presentation provided in a memo from Pernon and Company dated 26 January. And that presentation in the written document indicate that the subject's driveway on 2 Hague Street will not, being about 30 feet from the existing driveway of the abutting property, will not adversely impact the driveway operations, basically because there's no increased vehicle presence at 6 Hague Street. So yes, thank you, Phil, that bringing that into the record.
So you amended your motion, Dave?
No, that was simply
Well, I mean, if you just say you amended.
discussion, my discussion as to why I got to my conclusion.
Did you ask that to be added to his motion, Phil?
I asked him if he wanted it. Would you do it?
So if you want to include that in your motion, just amend your motion and we'll get a second on
You
your amendment.
reference the memo.
Yes,
Just for phrasing.
thank you. So, adding on to that motion that I made, that making reference to a written analysis provided by Pernon and Company dated 26 January this year.
And I'll amend my second to incorporate
Thank you.
the reference.
Okay, so I think we have our motion correct. Is any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, excuse me, all those in favor of the motion to approve conditional use permit number 3 with an explanation and an amended explanation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
I abstain.
Brian has also abstained, thank you. So Joanne, now that these 2 conditional use permits have been revisited by the board and voted on, what is the next move by this, where are we with this application? This remand?
So now we're back to an approved plan as we had been previously. And if the petitioners want to request a appeal, they need to bring it back to the court.
But there's no further action.
Not by the town or by this board.
Okay, do we need a motion of any kind then, Joanne?
No, that's just normal procedure.
Okay.
You need findings of fact.
On a remand, I don't know.
What else could we say
I
other
mean-
than what we said?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't know if they just needed to be.
I don't think we do findings of fact, because this was a discussion on the court remand. This is not an approval where we have to have findings of fact for an approval.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I think the findings of fact were within the
Conditional use
narrative
permits themselves.
of all the conditional use permit
Okay.
reasoning. All right, so that concludes this matter for this evening.
I was just going to say, if you want to be on the safe side,
Thank you.
you may want to just say findings of fact were
Well, then let's have
included.
finding of facts, we'll add it to the record. Joanne?
So if you'd like to do that, then I would just say that, that the board has agreed that the finding of facts for these 2 conditional use permits that were remanded are referenced in our motion as far as, we went through all of the criteria which we found to be our findings, something like that, clean it up a little bit.
I agree.
So you're stating that the findings of fact were all stated within the discussion of all the criteria for the 2
Correct.
conditional use
Yeah.
permits?
And Tim, if I could, we should also be specific that we're talking about the plans that are stamped received February 17th, 2023, to make sure there's no confusion.
Right.
What's the date on them, Carlos?
February 17, 2023.
That's the
That's
date,
the received date.
the received date. The initial date is February 19th, 2021. I don't think there's revisions. with a last revision date of 8/25/21.
No.
So the
What's on
fi-
the table are 2/17/23. If you look at the top of the revision block, it says update of others.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Right,
missed that.
217.
Yeah,
2/17/23.
2/17/23.
Anything else from board members on this matter? So ladies and gentlemen in the audience that are here for this tonight, this concludes
Do we
the,
need a vote on that?
no, we didn't have,
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry. I thought
We
it
had-
was a
we had
motion.
two
I thought it
motions.
You voted on the motions and
Okay,
then
no, I thought,
the
I'm sorry.
findings of fact. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, I thought somebody made a motion.
Yeah, there should be a vote on the findings
all
of
right, Phil, would
fact.
you create a motion for the finding of fact?
I'm sure Gail can type it.
Come on, somebody's got to say it so we can vote on it. So what's the motion, Phil?
Motion is that the,
The findings of fact as presented by the planning director.
findings of fact is presented by the planning director and the accompanying material.
So you're finding that the findings of fact have already been stated
Right.
in your review of the two conditional use permits and your,
And they're
And the criteria
incorporated into
board.
this
and they're
decision.
incorporated into the approval.
Correct.
Now,
Along with the, do we want the 217?
I'll second, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion to accept the finding of facts as presented by the planning director by Phil, seconded by Kimberly. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Thank you, Brian. Brian is abstaining.
Got it.
So that concludes the matter then, Joanne?
Yes.
So for all the folks that are here for this application, this matter is concluded.
For records, for the record on GTV, none of plaintiff's facts were permitted this evening, okay? Everything that the planning director said, okay, was rebutted in last meeting, and none of these rebuttals were brought up, which is wrong, because
So you
in
can-
the case,
This
there's
is
a
not
defendant and a
public session,
plaintiff,
Chair.
and plaintiff was not even allowed to show her pictures,
Thank
which
you,
is wrong.
thank you for coming, everyone, tonight, and
And a
Katie,
correction,
Katie,
finding of facts,
Katie,
it's
you
supposed to
don't
be
have the-
200 feet
Your-
from Mast Road.
your
Because
comments
Mast
are not
Road is
gonna
an
be-
arterial road, okay, it's not 100 or 125
Katie,
feet, so
you're-
that is wrong. The facts
are-
are wrong,
we are not
okay?
accepting any
We will
comments.
see you
This is not
folks
public
back in
stuff.
court, okay, because
Thank
this
you
was
very
already
much.
predetermined,
Thank
which
you
is
very
really
much.
bad. It's very sad,
Thank you very
sad.
much. No,
We'll see you back in court.
not included, there was no comment permitted, we just allowed her to speak. No, she could speak, she's gonna do it anyway, so just let her. We're gonna take a 2-minute break here for everybody to settle down for a second and let these folks clear the room. I'm sitting next to them, Brian, it's even worse.
Well, I know. Keep them over there.
I'd like to thank everyone at the meeting tonight, from the staff and the board members who took the time to review all these documents and to make cognitive arguments, or not arguments, cognitive statements that address the matter tonight that is remanded by the court to us. And I thank everyone for their hard work. So we're going to go back to,
I'd like to just also thank the planning coordinator.
I just did.
Okay, but as a board member,
Well, you're going to add it to it? Fine, thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on, excuse me, to the new business item, which is Dave Neiman is here tonight to discuss Open Space Committee presentation. Joanne, could you please tell us briefly why David is here? And we'll bring David up to the microphone so he can speak.
So you all should have an email from David to me, and then he has attached information about what he wants to talk about. So he's basically coming forward to talk about a recommendation for land acquisition for open space purposes. And the land is located on Page Hill Road. And that's about all I can tell you.
Are we here just for a presentation, Joanne? Are we here for a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? What are we for?
I believe he's going to ask for a recommendation, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so we got it all laid out here. Everybody knows what's going on? Well, David, you must play Santa Claus in your family.
Good evening. Why do you say that?
Because you have a new look from the last time I saw you.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since
Oh.
I've been to one of these meetings, so good to see everybody
Welcome,
again.
David. So for the record,
For the record, I'm David Neiman. I'm here representing the Goffstown Conservation Commission. And here to tell you about a conservation project that's been in the works about a year and a half now. And first of all, it's not I just want to correct the statement a little bit, it's not a land acquisition, it's a conservation easement acquisition. So nobody's buying.
could you please
the land.
explain to everyone, including the public, what a conservation easement is that you're speaking of this evening, opposed to a land acquisition?
So land acquisition, simple fee acquisition is, I think, what everybody would expect it to be. You own the land. But land is purchased, not just the physical ownership, but there's also rights and other attributes of the land that can be partitioned from that ownership. Most people are familiar with timber rights or mining rights or things like that. Development rights are also part of the attributes of the land, and a conservation easement is a legal device to protect a piece of land so that it stays in its use in perpetuity, whether that use is for environmental protection or farmland protection. And for the project I'm going to present to you tonight, it's both farmland and environmental. And so when the conservation easement is sold, it can be held by a governmental entity like the town, or a better process, I think most of us agree, is be held by a nonprofit land trust. And the nonprofit land trust takes on the responsibility of the stewardship and the oversight. And that's a much better way to go than putting the burden on the town. So we usually try to work with land trusts. And land trusts, organizations that are land trusts, most people are familiar with the Nature Conservancy, which is kind of an international scale. Or here in New Hampshire, we have the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. And on a somewhat more regional, we have the Piscataquag Land Conservancy. And that's who we're working with on this project. They've done the bulk of the work, so I'm here to take in all the glory for all the work they did.
And my last question, David, would be when you engage in one of these conservatorship type arrangements where you don't actually own the land, does the public have any access to this land, or is it kept private land that people are not allowed to use in passive recreation and such?
That really depends on the project and the nature of the project. Usually when we're preserving something, environmental land, a forest, or preserving around the wetlands, we make every effort to open it up and have hiking trails and parking lot or whatever is required. But we also work to preserve working farmland. In the case of working farmland, although it's not necessarily closed, if you want to go walk on the property, you can ask, and it won't be posted against trespassing or anything like that. So in the New Hampshire sense, it's open. But we're not looking to have an open hunting season in the pasture. Not particularly good for grazing livestock, or large groups of people walking through an agricultural field and trampling the crop. They may be very welcome other parts of the year, but not during the harvest season. So some places are completely wide open with no restrictions. It's a more limited case. This is one where it's going to be a bit more of a limited case. It'll be more open around the, I'll describe in a second, there's two different areas. There's the environmental area and the agricultural area. So the agricultural area won't be as open as the environmental area. The environmental area will be open, but we're not planning on building a parking lot or anything like that to make it a major
parking lot
attraction.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation, David, so please continue. I just wanted to kind of give the public that may be listening to this a little bit of a broader background, because we all know, because we've heard it before, but other people don't always know what's going on.
No, I understand. And part of the process is the Conservation Commission will be making a contribution towards this project from our Land Conservation Fund, which is derived proceeds from the land use change tax. But in exchange for that, we expect and will receive an interest in the easement that's referred to as an executory interest. So if we're using any of our town conservation funds to help pay for it, the executory interest is a statement that goes in the easement saying that the town of Goffstown has the right to step in and execute and enforce the easement should the primary easement holder fail to do their duty. So, you know, the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, the Forest Society, or the Nature Conservancy went out of business for some reason, whoever we're working with, the town of Goffstown could then step in and enforce that easement. We're not too worried about that, but it is a good safeguard. So this particular project, this is located up on the top of Patty Hill Road, Route 13, almost up to the Dunbarton border. And most people in town will be familiar as they drive up along the ridge line there, that you have this dramatic view dropping down, looking on one side of the road. There's a big farmland, and then there's also a farm on the other side. Well, the one that you're looking down on the right side going north, we did a conservation easement on that about 15, 16 years ago. And now we're working on a project for the other side. In addition to that, there's a field that's located on the corner of Patty Hill Road and Page Hill Road. And that field previously has been before this board. I don't know what year it was, many years back, and it was approved for subdivision.
At least 15, because I remember it.
Yeah, approved for subdivision into 5 lots. It hasn't been developed yet. It was about to be, and as we were starting the project for the other side, we realized there was an opportunity to reclaim and save that field. The reason we would really want to do that is because that field is prime farmland soil. It's a specific soil type, the most valuable soil type that you'll find in the state of New Hampshire. We don't have that many prime agricultural fields in town. And, you know, we want to preserve local agriculture as much as possible. That's a big intent of this project. So we're delighted to have the opportunity. And what is happening is that the King family that we're working on to do the easement is purchasing that land, and it was added to this project. And frankly, the purchase of that field is probably what drove the primary cost on this project, because that land was a developer's dream. Flat hayfields, completely wide open, 5 lots. But they're wonderful, productive hayfields, and we're much, much happier to keep them that way. So the project was kind of complex because it's an expensive project. There's a statement, one of the pages in your attachment. So, well, maybe actually before we talk to the numbers, just a quick oversight. If you looked at the attachment of the topography, it'll give you a much better sense of what we're looking at here, the total area. There's a big wetland that looks like a tooth, looks like a big old molar tooth. And it's shaped that way because there's 3 glacial drumlins that are like big dams and damming up the water to make that structure. Those are all highly productive farmland, either farmland or forest soils. And the wetland itself is also very productive. That's the environmental piece, the primary environmental piece. We're working to protect that wetland. And that wetland is one of our town-designated prime wetlands. It's referred to as the Harry Book tributary marsh. The other, on the other, you see the corner of where those other 5 lots are, and they're sitting down on the end of the drumlin that the road actually runs up on, because you're driving along the axis of that drumlin when you're looking down on both sides. And you can then see there's also an image in here that has the soils map, and the purple is the prime farmland and soils of statewide importance.
What do the zone words represent on your maps? Are those soil zones, or what are those zones? Zone A, B, C?
That, thank you, that's a good
B and E?
question. So, this is a very expensive project, and we were going for multiple sources of funding, grant sources. And each funding source has its own requirements, its own intents and purposes. So for example, we applied to the DES Aquatic Resource Mitigation Program for an ARM grant. That grant is designed to protect wetlands and the land, essentially buffering and protecting the wetlands. It's not designed for agricultural protection or the fields. We also applied for most of the other grants that we applied for didn't quite have that restriction. So what we had to do was divide the land up into zones and saying, these are the restrictions in each of these zones that
Okay.
the easements will state. And the ARM grant was limited on which zones it would apply to, and the others were more flexible. And I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page here. You'll see like Zone A, that's the wetlands themselves, no disturbance of any kind is allowed. Zone B is the wetlands buffer. Again, there's no cutting, no forestry, no agriculture. That's kind of corresponds to our 100-foot setback that we usually have in our wetlands. Zone C is some forest management is allowed, limited forestry. Zone D is kind of an interesting one. It's forestry, but there's some limited amount of pasturing underneath that narrow strip that the family currently does, and that's that would not be allowed under the ARM grant. So the ARM grant only applies to zones A, B, and C, whereas the other grants more liberally apply to all of it. Zone E is agriculture and forestry. As you can see, that's the open fields, and they're either hay fields or pasture or forestry on the edges of them. So it's just all these zones were created and laid out, and different rules applied to what's allowed and what isn't allowed in those different areas, so that we could satisfy all the grantors that were providing us with funding. That made it complicated. That made it expensive, because you got to come up with all kinds of reports and everything. So in our project budget, I mean the total value of this project, and by total value I mean the appraised value of the easement plus all the expenses, was $924,000. Land's getting pretty expensive out there. The purchase price of the easement itself was $525,000. So it was a bargain sale by the family. They were discounting it by $325,000 right off the top, which really helped a lot. By the time you add up all the various and sundry expenses for appraisals and stewardship for project management, and it just goes on, title, work title, insurance, you can see the whole list. That adds up to about $75,000. So the total cost of this project is $599,590. We applied for an LCHIP grant. By we, I mean the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, PLC, and received $200,000 from that. The ARM grant is providing $270,000. The Merrimack Conservation Partners Organization, a grant from them for $20,000. Moose Plate grant that comes from buying those license plate with the moose on it, $24,000, which is their maximum award. And then there's like almost $35,590 from different assorted private foundations and local private donations, which leaves from our Goffstown Conservation Fund, we will expend $50,000. So for $50,000, we're leveraging that, and for a project that's costing almost $600,000, that works out to 8% of the total project cost.
Board members have any questions for David?
I have a question. Dave, can you just describe Drumlins? And we have a couple of new board members plus people on GTV.
I know, people in general are probably really sick of me talking about drumlins all the
Well,
time.
Then David, make it short.
Make it short, the reason why I said it.
Just tell them how the glacier scoured the earth and created the drumlins.
Well, you
Well,
talk
it's
about the
more
importance
interesting
of
than
it.
that,
Well, we don't
actually.
have to be that
Deposit-
interested in it,
well,
really.
okay, well, they're glacial formations. They're made of pure sediment. They're up to 100 to, in Goffstown, anywhere from 100 to 150 feet high. Most of our hills and everywhere is bedrock, hard rock, very poor soils. But these drumlins are fine-grained clays and glacial sediments that formed in crevasses in the ice. And they tend to occur in clusters and clumps where they occur. So in this corner of town, we have many of these drumlins. It's like a whole field of them. They're just parallel with each other. And it's this combination of these hills with really rich, well-developed soil and then beautiful wetlands between them makes this the richest part of town in terms of ecological habitat and variability, biodiversity. It's the Drumlin Field Wetland Complex.
You live
That's
on
our
it.
We live
treasure.
on one, you and I both live on the
Yeah.
same drumlin.
And we have a proposed project on the other side of this drumlin system that we have already looked at as a conceptual plan, so.
Okay, anything else for board members for David?
That's actually the reason why we wanted to bring it up, because of that other
Crafty
one.
that way.
All right. Does anybody have any comments or questions for David?
I just have a question on
Brian?
the zone E's for the pastures and the hay fields. So they're
Yeah.
gonna be still used as such moving forward, if this even,
Oh, yes, this is an active working
Okay.
farm. It's,
Okay.
agriculture is alive and well on this property.
So basically, Zone B and A, the only two zones they don't have use of. Every other zone they would have use of C, D, and E zones, as stated in your documents.
Yes, C and D zones, they can do forestry. In Zone D, some minimal pasturing under the trees.
Board members? Kimberly?
I just want to thank the hard work of the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee and the staff at PLC and the King family for this amazing project to come through. This is very good news for our town.
Yeah, like I said, I'm here to bask in the glory of all the hard work the PLC did.
Well, you're doing a fabulous job, David.
And just one question.
Bill?
On the Zone A, is there any particular reason why it doesn't extend down, that lower wetland area? Is that-
Oh, that's off the project map, so there's the yellow line is the boundary of this
No,
project.
I understand that. Is there a reason why the boundary is like that and it just doesn't come down?
Because that's not their land, probably.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
well, okay,
Yeah.
that's the reason. I didn't know if this was just zones that you had for that and it didn't, it was,
No, maybe if we're lucky someday, we'll be able to do a project on that adjacent property, but that's not part of this landowner's property.
understood.
Is that the property that's at the end of Upaway Farm? No, the
Yeah.
other one. Upaway Farm?
Yeah,
Okay. What's their last name?
I don't remember.
I do. I used to run the insurance agency here in town, next to Tommy Hall's
Used to
radio. and
be
TV.
Eleanor Port.
No, Eleanor Port is down the road
That's
on the
High
opposite
Enough
side.
Farm.
High Enough Farm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
But
Eleanor
we're
Port's,
drifting here.
yeah,
But the other road is called Upaway Farm, and
yeah.
there's a house out there. It's a class 6,
It's a beautiful property.
class 5 road.
It's
The
a
town
beautiful
plows it.
property. Oh, and the one other thing I didn't mention is this is the heart of our General John Stark Scenic Byway. It goes right through the middle of this.
Thank you for the promotion. Mr.
And-
Chair, I'm the chair of the John
I
Stark.
remember when you brought me the signposts to put in
The
and where.
John
They're all
Stark
in.
Scenic Byway Council, and in
Okay.
that capacity, I wrote letters of endorsement to those organizations David got grants
Ah.
from.
Yeah,
It's one of the most scenic portions along the 34 miles where you have farmland and nice-looking forest, as well as a vista going to the east quite a ways.
I would
I-
contend it's the most.
I would too, and there's nobody here from Ware or New Boston to beat me up, so I'm saying it's the best.
All right, so, do we need a motion to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? Is that where we are?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to have someone make a motion if they feel it's appropriate.
So moved.
Second,
motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen?
Right, the expenditure of the funds, right? That's what you're
Well,
looking for?
no,
Or approval
we-
of the project?
For them to accept the executory interest in the project through the 4114A process.
Thank
All
you.
right, so
That right?
motion to
Don't
recommend.
they have to move forward
and
with
who
it?
made the motion? You, Kimberly?
I made it, and call a second.
And to move forward with the process?
And to move forward with the
Yeah.
process.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you, David.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate your time. All right, Joanne, I am going, next thing I'm gonna go to is the nice woman sitting in the audience who is here from Lamontagne, I believe.
Yes,
Okay, so
Christine
let's
is
move on to
here.
the bond. There's paperwork in your packet, bond worksheet.
Does everybody have the plan too? The
Right in front of us?
landscaping plan?
Yes.
You wanna come up?
I don't remember seeing that.
This is, everybody needs to wait a minute.
I don't remember seeing
We
it.
did not, we approved this, but I think there's new information on this. Is that what this is, Joanne?
No, so the last time they came in and spoke with you, they had asked if they could,
Oh, this is.
in exchange for having all of these tall trees that will,
Yes, yes.
you know, one day become a problem, if they could go with lower shrubs.
Yep.
In exchange for some of the trees, so that's
Right.
second sheet, I think it's the second sheet. The second sheet is what Lamontagne provided, which.
So what is the first sheet, the original plan?
That's the original
The
plan,
second sheet is what we're looking at tonight?
correct. So they're here because they'd like to move forward, and this is the phase 2 that they're working on currently. So they had some changes with the type of plantings, which they had already discussed with the board, and the board said that that was okay. Now they're showing the fencing
Fencing is on this plan?
is on the
How
plan.
can we possibly see the fencing here, Joanne?
It's all those little dots.
So many plants.
It's like a dot
Yeah,
and
that
a
was a good one.
line and a dot.
You can see it, it's barely there.
So it's this little line that runs through and then jig jogs and goes over there? Okay, we see the
Yeah.
fence now. Okay.
So Christine had asked me what's the next step,
Right here, straight line.
and I wasn't positive whether we have to call them back in for another hearing or whatever, and I had spoke with Tim and.
All right, well, let's have this quick discussion tonight, and if we deem it a non-material change, we don't have to have another hearing.
Okay,
So, board members have the plantings in front of you, and this, I think this was held over because you weren't here, Kimberly.
That's right.
Right.
So, everybody take a minute to look it over. Christine, do you have anything you'd like to add to this tonight? First of all, your name for the record.
Christine Lamontagne. This is our proposed improvement to the plan, the original approved landscape plan. The concern of the town and our residents was, screening from Mass Road, and so we would like to implement a fence to do that. And in doing so, when implementing the fence, we thought the best use of a very limited space would be to change out some of the plantings from the pine trees, which were originally used for screening purposes, which is now done by the fence, would be to dress that up with a different type of plant. So the original landscape architect has done a revised plan showing a different groupings of plantings incorporating the fence so that we can have proper screening and still maintain the aesthetic that everybody's looking for.
and Scott and the DOT checked for site distance, and the site distance is fine, so,
And DOT has okayed it as well.
right.
And we will check it after they're planted as well to make sure that nothing changed enough to
So-
affect the site distance.
Can we go to the fence, Christine, please?
Oh, was that? Yep,
Can we go to the fence?
sure.
You show it on the print. I drive by there twice a day,
Yeah.
every day, mostly. And I'm trying to figure out, where are you gonna position the fence on that slope so that it works for your screening for your residents from the road? At the top of the slope, or do you know?
I'd have to, I can certainly have it marked out. We're gonna have to have
We don't
it.
need to have it marked out. I'm just trying to figure out how you're gonna make it work.
I think it's near the top of the
It's near the top.
because the slope is very steep.
There's no point in us putting a fence in that's gonna be down below
Right,
their line of sight. So our goal is to keep it, we're gonna continue with the same 6-foot fence that we used on the first phase. So it's, matching from the first phase, and,
And your picture here, Mr. Fence Guy shows wood. You're not putting it wood.
that's, I think, just his logo.
Okay, good, because I wouldn't want that to be a representation of what
It's
you're doing.
it's going to be the same exact fencing, as the first phase.
Yeah,
And
the
you-
description says behind.
Did you review these quotes, Scott?
Yes, I'm pretty sure you already approved this.
The bond is approved,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, I
we
know
had
it's
it bonded as approved.
Yeah, okay.
So we're just here to look at
The
the new
fence.
plan.
The only reason I included this was because of the change out with the plantings, but Christina and I spoke about that, and it wouldn't be much of a difference. It would probably be more expensive for the trees versus the shrubs. So she was willing to leave it as it is.
I think the taller pines are probably more expensive than.
Kimberly?
Yeah.
Well, can you summarize what the changes are?
Yeah, the changes are, we adjusted some of the plantings to accommodate the fence and also some site distance issues that Scott had with the original plan, because when the original plan was approved, I don't think the site distance was overlaid. So we had adjusted some of those things. Anything that even looks close to the site distance line is a deciduous tree that's not going to impede with site distance. And then,
And they're also up on that hill.
yeah, up on the hill. And the main change is the adding of the fence. And when we wanted to add the fence, we thought the best course of action would be to remove the pine trees. And so because we were going to be changing the landscaping plan, that's why we're here for the approval. We wanted to swap out those screening trees for more decorative plantings to
Did
decorate
all
the
of the
fence.
pine trees go away on this, Christine?
I believe most of them. There's still some, like there's some spruce trees.
I only ask you because at the last discussion, I believe I stated that we know that the deciduous trees and shrubbery lose all their leaves.
Yeah,
and they're
there's
just
still some all-season evergreens. I see some pine, there's some Bosnian pine trees.
browns. I just want to make sure that something stays live looking
Yeah, and we've got some arborvitae's in here
year
too.
round, not just
Yeah,
in the summer when they're leafed out.
yeah, no, she has a comprehensive plan there.
And what is the, what are the numbers? Maria, you
How do the
reading?
numbers compare? I mean,
There's actually 10 more plants on the new plan.
okay, thank you. And then are the plantings in front of the fence, between the fence and the road?
I believe most of them are, just because of where the fence needs to be placed. I believe most of them are on the street side. It will be significantly screened.
Well, so is that the case? Then the fence will be screened from the road?
Yes.
We're not gonna drive along with just a big white fence?
You will when the leaves are all down.
Well,
Well,
The cedars will still have.
But I'd like to be the fly in the ointment here. We're giving this fence a big discussion, and I noticed when they redid the house across from the old Ford garage, they put up a massive white fence the entire, around 3 sides of the property. It was the old Karenikis property. So, you know, they didn't have to come in and ask us for permission to put up a fence and how ugly it was gonna look or how good it was gonna look. So I think it's, for discussion purposes, I think it's fair not to dwell on the fence itself and what it's gonna look like, because fences are issued by the building department and we don't have any say in other fences, so, just to be fair to the applicant.
I'd like to counter that, though.
Go ahead.
This is something that it's a residential development in our commercial district, and we drive by, the majority of the town just drives by this all the time, and I just want to make sure that it is, we're not losing the scenic, landscaping that was originally proposed.
no, we want it to look good just as much as you guys do. We have a lot of assets to move sitting there. We want it to look good, and we want it to look good for those residents.
And I would contend that I like it personally, because I think the white fence serves as a palette, and the trees are up against the palette, as you would see in a painting, and I think it looks good, personally.
So they're not all installed yet, right?
No,
Nothing's
there's nothing
there.
installed. Gotcha. I wouldn't install it before.
Gotcha. Okay.
Board members, anybody have any other questions tonight? Because we're looking for a yay or a nay on the plan tonight from the board.
Wait. Sorry.
Specifically,
lose the Leary
specifically
addendum?
that the change is
Oh.
non-substantial.
Yeah, we'll have to make a motion to that.
Oh, sorry.
Non-material.
So much prettier.
Let's move this along, board members, I'd like to go home.
Sorry, didn't someone make a motion?
Not yet.
Make a motion that's non-material change.
So there's a motion that this is a non-material change.
I'll second that.
There was Phil
Yes.
and Collis.
Yes.
So the motion is to make the planning redesign a non-material change to the original plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Did you vote no or did you say yes?
Yes, I said yes.
You sounded like a no voice.
I'm grumpy, but yes.
Okay, so this has been deemed a non-material change, so Joanne, we're gonna turn this over to you for,
See if you want
have it implemented. We can include this page in the plan set.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, thank you, Christine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, we're gonna return to the, correspondence action items. Tentative CIP meeting schedule, no action required, good. We have emails from Gail LeBrecq, Brad Parkhurst, and Dan O'Connell stating they would like to serve on the CIP committee as community-at-large members. We have to vote on that.
I make a motion that we accept the applications by Gail Breck, Brad Parkhurst, and Dan O'Connell for serving on the CIP committee.
Second.
Let's see, motion, okay, I'll write it later. So there's a motion to,
2-year or 3-year appointment?
It's just
It's
one
just
year.
1 year.
Annual.
They're
It's just
annual.
1 year. Now, do you have a chair yet for CIP?
we did not vote Kimberly in at the last meeting,
Okay.
so we're gonna take care of that. I knew that had to be done.
They're annual appointments. You gotta sign up every year. Sorry, Kathy, I'll do that.
So the motion to approve the community-at-large members that were presented to us this evening. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. And now, Kimberly has generously offered to run the CIP this year. Barbara wanted to have a CIP discussion of how the committee operates and how it functions, and I think that Kimberly knows how it functions, but she has some input for it at a next meeting, but that doesn't mean we can't elect Kimberly to the chair this evening.
I think, because I asked Barbara about that, because we can't really keep holding up the appointment. And Barbara said her concern was not for the beginning process of CIP, it was for once it comes to the board for deliberations. And she feels that over the past few years that the board has pretty much just like rubber stamped it with not much discussion. I mean, there's a whole presentation by the
Because we do such a
CIP
great job.
committee, but then the board itself doesn't discuss too much. So she wanted to talk about maybe some changes or.
I
Because she's here to talk about
I served on CIP for a long time, and the main goal of CIP has always been to evaluate the requests and then spread them out in the matrix so the tax rate doesn't go up and down from year to year, just to blend it out. And sometimes you move a project out, sometimes you say, no, we can't do that right now. It's not in the best interest of the taxpayers.
it. So it doesn't become overly burdensome on the.
So that's what CIP should be doing, and hopefully they, adhere to that conceptual design.
Can we kick it out to a future meeting discussion?
Oh, we are gonna have it when Barbara
Right,
comes.
I'm not here on the 11th, so sorry. I'm
Okay.
gonna have to kick it out one more.
Well, then, you just let us know.
Did we get an email stating that we're scheduled, our first meeting is scheduled in May?
In June.
June.
June?
There was some time frame mix up on
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I think it's included in this
Patty
packet.
has to do the books up for everybody.
It's the third page of starts June 1st.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we need a motion to appoint Kimberly as chair. I don't have that yet.
Second.
Motion's been made to appoint Kimberly as chair of the CIP,
Big Joanne and she's
Bill, Gail. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Okay, the next item is the request for recommendation to be forwarded to the select board for building on 28 Crescent Lane. It's a class 6 road. There is a sheet somewhere that I saw somewhere in my packet here on the bottom. Here it is. Goffstown Building Department application. Where is this Crescent Lane? Does anybody know?
Top of the mountain.
It's on the top of the mountain, yeah.
North,
Yeah.
north on Canooning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the,
No, excuse me, south on Canooning.
Oh, Bob Spinelli's house?
yeah,
I know.
see where it says up there, welcome Mountain Canoe, population 3?
So what does he want to do, Joanne?
So he was redoing his kitchen, but now he's actually leaving the foundation and removing the walls and the roof. So he's going to be putting in new framing, raising another section of the roof.
Is he expanding the building?
No.
So he's
same
replacing the
foundation.
house,
He's what?
replacing the house.
He's
But it's
remodeling
the
the house
same-
if he leaves one wall up,
It's the
Bill.
same foundation.
I did it.
Oh, I know that.
That doesn't make it right.
So, it's the law.
Yeah.
It is.
I followed the law.
No,
So,
you're right, you're right.
If Mr. Spinelli wants to expand, raise his house and not make it any larger, then I don't even know why we're looking at this.
Because it's on classic road.
It's because it's on a class 6 road and you need to make a recommendation to the select board. I should take that
We
back.
don't have to make
You don't
any
have to make a
recommendation.
recommendation. If you have
If I
comments to
follow
send to
Jim's
the
advice.
select board, you can do that. If you have no comment, then we'll send no comment.
We usually say no comment, don't we?
Normally.
No, it's not on these, it depends on where it is. I mean, because I see it has an electric service, it's got electric meter. When you go through the property sheet and you look what's there, it says that it's 3 bedrooms on it. If he's leaving the foundation, he's not expanding it. I mean, you have to take into consideration, where the location is.
Go ahead, Phil, sorry.
You have to take into consideration the location, because where it is, it's not like a couple of other properties that were up there that didn't even have an electric meter to them.
Okay,
So,
does anybody have any objection to this? Does anybody want to make a motion? Do we want to say no comment? What do you want to do?
well, I think that we should, because some of the ones that we
Well, then make a
recommended.
motion.
Well, I'd make a recommend, I don't have an issue with it. I'd make a motion to approve it.
We don't approve, we make a
No,
motion
recommendation.
Recommendation.
to,
I said,
Rec-
make a recommendation to approve it.
motion to approve the recommendation to the BOS?
Yeah.
I'll second.
And it's probably the only time they're gonna take our recommendation. Because it's one of the few times I think we've done that on plastic road.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to approve the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Me, I'm opposed. I don't think we should ever recommend. Any abstentions? None. None.
Who seconded it?
Kimberly, Building Kimberly. And that's the last of the correspondence and action items.
There's
I have agenda
there's
item.
one there's one more thing on the agenda itself. It's,
What is it?
um,
I didn't read it.
appointment, member to,
EDC
oh, EDC, and request to
Where's
be,
that?
and Southern New Hampshire Planning.
that would be me. My term is up as of June 30th.
We tried this at the last meeting and nobody wanted to be on EDC, as I remember.
Well, you have to keep asking.
Okay. Who wants to be on EDC? Okay, next subject. Who wants to be on Southern New Hampshire Planning?
It's my term that needs to be reappointed. It's an
Okay.
alternate position.
So let's make a motion to recommend to the Board of...
Recommend the Board of Selectmen reappointment as an alternate for Southern New Hampshire Planning.
I'll second.
Phil? You made it?
Yeah.
Kimberly?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend the appointment of Joanne back onto Southern New Hampshire Planning. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Motion to adjourn.
And nobody wanted to, Kimberly's got something, nobody wanted to go on EDC, right?
I thought she was volunteering.
I got CIP.
Well, we'll wait till Colleen comes back. Maybe Colleen would like to do it. We don't know yet.
Yeah, that could
I think she said no at the last meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
No,
Not yet.
We need
sorry.
a second.
No.
We're not adjourning. So don't even listen to that one.
So Joanne and I discussed the fact that the Walton Farm on the back road has put out signs to run a mulch and landscaping company. They are in an agricultural zone, which is only allowed under a special exception. Joanne, I know they came to you and you decided that that was part of their agricultural use.
Correct.
I disagree that running a retail mulch and landscape sales is an agricultural use. And I would also add that as an abutter, and I am an abutter, so I'll make that point, but we hear the sound of excavators moving on that property from sunup to sundown. And I've lived across from a farm for 23 years, so I'm used to tractor noise. But this is constant excavators moving, and I don't know how that's going to change. So a mulch and landscaping business, it's a business. So it's a retail business. I don't think that's an ag use, and I think they need to come forward with a special exception. Or, I laid it out to you, we could also look at section 5.12 of landscaping businesses in the agricultural district need to come in for a site plan. So we could alternatively ask them to come in for a site plan review to show us what they're doing, hours of operation, so that we could discuss this. And I'll say this, not just as an abutter, but it's worth pointing that out, but also the back road is an agricultural corridor, it's not a commercial corridor. And so we should not be allowing uses that turn that into a commercial corridor. You know, we have zoning for purpose, we have a master plan for purpose, and we don't keep those purposes if we don't actually allow, you know, we can't just allow an a farm to turn into a business, because that's what I worry about is, okay, oh, we're selling a little bit of mulch. There's not a little bit of mulch. I haven't driven over there, but the constant sound that's going on, this is not small. And I'm concerned that this is, it's definitely a change in use. So I think we, as the planning board, should discuss whether we think it's a change in zoning and they need a special exception, or whether we want to see it as a site plan. So.
Well, it's not on the agenda for discussion tonight, so I think we should have posted an agenda item for a future meeting. And you can review your decision, Joanne, and make arguments to the opposite if that's what you choose to do. And we will have this as an agenda item for a future meeting.
I also want to make a comment, though, that they are working with Scott about a driveway. Scott, I know they're clearing trees to put that in. Okay, sorry.
I'm not familiar with the situation of the driveway.
I would ask that driveway be permit, or if there is a driveway permit in place, I'd ask that be reviewed again, because if that's for the future use, I want to make sure that future use is allowed and, you know, officially permitted through the proper channels before they go cut trees down and put in a driveway, which is literally going to add more noise and sight view from my house into a mulch district, which was a farm and should stay a farm. And it's been run as a farm business, but I have concerns about this, so.
So I did check with the owner after we spoke.
I don't want to have a discussion about this tonight.
Okay.
I don't want to have any discussion about this tonight.
All
It was
right.
not noticed. The people who are in question are not here. No discussion. We will have a posted meeting, and you'll invite the applicant to come, the other folks to come in for the discussion. But that's it. We've talked about it. All we're going to talk about it tonight.
Okay.
I won't be here at the 11th, so
There you
I'll
go.
have to push it off.
So we'll talk about it when you're not here. So dispose of it
Which is
quickly.
true.
Just-
So the next meeting, I think, is the 11th, right?
So we'll
Yeah.
have to put it a month out.
25th. Okay.
We're gonna put the Pang Farm on that too.
The driveway situation.
That's gone.
What's going on with Pang Farm?
Oh,
It's
From
for
our
sale.
perspective, we don't look at what the
he's
use
gone.
is.
Well, he
We
still owns
just
it.
look at it.
All right, Phil, it's time.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Brian, here's your choice. Here's your chance at the second motion.
Close to the ground.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, GTV.